Welcome to the Business Spotlight. My name's James Burke, and today we've got Rebecca with us, who's got an incredible story. A story that involves growth, involves what it's really like being a business owner, and specifically being a female entrepreneur in a world that can sometimes be dominated by males. We don't always get to hear that side of the story. So I don't want to share too much of Rebecca's story with you because that's what she's here to do. Rebecca, welcome to the Business Spotlight.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you with us. So let's dive straight in. Rebecca, tell us about the history of your company, how you started the business, why you started the business, and how things have been since then.
Um, okay, so go back 20 years, 21 years. Well, when I was 18, 19, I was studying drama, theatre. I loved it, but I lost all my confidence because I was looking at other actors, directors, and performers and thinking, they're better than me and they care more than me. And I was thinking, that is not a good mix for doing well. But then I got introduced to a different sort of theatre. I learned about a politician and theatre maker called Augusto Boal. He's changed 13 laws in Brazil. He was in exile. He's an activist. So I learned about his theatre and saved up from a bar job. I was working in a bar job as well, and just went out there with a couple of my friends, kept knocking on his door, asking for an internship. They said, no, you can't. We're fully booked. You should have done it more formally, but we just kept turning up. And eventually in Rio, when I was 18 or 19, just turned 19, I think, we did this internship learning from Augusto Boal, and we worked in prisons and favelas in Rio, seeing how theatre can be used for, what I would see as real purpose, social change, activism, all those things. Then when I got back to the UK, had the chance to learn about theatre in prisons. And again, I was just like, oh, wow, this is amazing. I was completely hooked. So actually, that was the start of the organisation. I didn't know that at the time, but I've never stopped doing it. And we're still doing it. So I was in prison on Tuesday watching a theatre performance and theatre project then. So that was the start, but it was never a sit down saying, let's start a business. I want to be an entrepreneur. Let's make a plan. It wasn't that at all. We were saying, I've got to do this work. So we were working after university. I was working full time in a bar, and so were my friends Claire and Hannah, who I set up the company with. And we used to work in the evenings in a bar and go and volunteer in prisons doing theatre in the day, or volunteer in community centres. Then we got a little bit of funding. We needed a bank account for that. We needed a name for that. It was that sort of messy startup, and we've had to kind of redo lots of the organizational setup years later because we didn't know what we were doing. But that is something I've learned, like passion and drive and determination and bravery and risk will get you a very long way. I think what's interesting is I've had to learn so much in the last 5 or 10 years about professionalizing and growing up, because it shifted from the company being about me. And what I mean is everything that was happening I knew about. I was there for everything. I was involved in everything. Whereas now, of course, I don't know where everyone is today. I don't know what everything that's happening, and you really have to learn to let go and professionalize. And I always said, like, when it was Odd Arts was about 18 years old, it's like when it started to be an adult. So I had 18 years of like full on graph delivery, which was my childhood in the company. And then there's been a lot of unlearning and learning again recently. So yeah, now we've got 18 staff in the core team, going up to 20 or 21 in the new year, and then around 15 regular freelancers. And we deliver theatre in three ways, really. Therapeutic theatre in like secure settings like prisons and hospitals. Theatre as a tool for social action, campaigning, as a form of protest, and also interactive theatre tours, which go to about 50,000 people a year, addressing really complex public health and social issues. So that is what we do on a day-to-day basis. And as you can imagine, I can't be everywhere all the time. So
Yeah, that's very true. Oh, wow. So what I heard in that story there, Rebecca, was you started following something and pursuing something that you was just really passionate about, something that you really enjoyed, and it turned into a business, and then it was kind of like, right, I've got to your passion and your, like you said, bravery and determined, like this determined point of view got you to year 18, and then when you really started adding on the bolt-ons of learning how to run a business, did things um, kind of kick on. I think there's some incredible learnings for sure.
Mm.
What would you, other than the passion and the bravery, what would you attribute your growth to? What tools have you used to really grow the business?
Okay, so I'm going to go first of all to one that I think is female specific because nobody really wants to hear this because it isn't in line with like the business learning model. But I'll
Yeah.
tell you, so I had four children in a small space of time, and I was like working as hard as I could, and never at that time did I think I'm taking it easy with the business. I was shattered, and I was running board meetings, breastfeeding when the baby was 3 weeks old. I'll be honest, I think some of the growth was after like a decade nearly of breastfeeding, finally sleeping through. It's really hard. Honestly, it's really hard to like innovate and push and drive forward with that going on. So that's not the only thing, but I have to admit it did make a difference, I think.
Yeah.
Separately, I got a mentor, Emma Sheldon, and she's now the chair of our charity. But she was like, in the best way, the most brutal person with me because I think a lot of people, if they speak to me, I like to think I'm kind and I know I work hard and everyone else knows I work hard and people can see I'm trying my best. But I think that sometimes makes it difficult for people to challenge and say, you're not doing good enough there. Because they're like, oh, she's nice and she's trying. But actually, I didn't need just that kind support. I needed someone to be saying, well, why haven't you done that? Or well, what's stopping you there? And as she started to question some of the things that were stopping me achieve some of these really big goals, I actually realized that was me. It was the only thing that was stopping me was me not doing it. And me not doing it was because it was not how I'd done it before, not something I saw myself to do. And because I kind of like almost birthed the company, if you know what I mean, and have been doing it for so many years, it's really hard to break habits that you started as a child almost. So I had to break a lot of habits and recognize that some of the excuses were actually because I just hadn't done good enough at things, if that makes sense. And so literally each time we met with my mentor, she's like, what, if I could say now, what would you really want in like 6 months' time? What is it that would change everything? And I remember labeling this one job. I was like, that'll change everything. She said, well, why haven't you got it? It's like, I don't know. And so the next time I met her, I was like, we've got that job in post. Like, it was that ridiculous. And then the next time she's like, where do you want to go with this? What's the next thing? And again, she's like, okay, what's stopping you? I was a bit like, I don't know. I just hadn't thought I could just do it. And so the thing I'm trying to shift now is instead of like doing everything and then catching up and trying to make it work for what was happening 2 years ago, we're trying to be a bit more strategic and like think, what do we want in 2 or 3 years? Right, well, we put that in place now. And I've had to get over my ego a bit and realize I don't need to be everywhere and people can do things without me. And also, I felt selfish and I felt guilty if I wasn't on the ground grafting in that sense. But I've learned that as I step back, the company grows and it's better for the projects, it's better for the beneficiaries, and it's better for our staff. So it's not selfish, but I still have to have that self-talk. That's why I'm saying it now. It's not a natural thing. And I was like that when I worked in a bar. I was assistant manager and I got in trouble once because I was the one clearing up all the sick in the toilets. They were like, why are you doing this? It's like, I'm not asking someone else to clear sick up. They were like, this isn't your job. but it's that thing of, you know what I mean? It's that thing of like an awkwardness of your role.
Well, there's also a big, it's almost like a leadership phrase, isn't it? Don't ask someone else to do something that you aren't willing to do. And I think sometimes that can get misconstrued when you're the business owner because it's like, that doesn't mean you have to do everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting insight. And again, the big learnings for me there, Rebecca, were um, again, it's that kind of like working on the business that you'd mentioned, but having that person that will speak to you direct because
Hmm.
again, that goes back to the phrase, doesn't it? Be the person who cares that much, they're willing to think that you don't care. They don't
Hmm.
care. Having that person around you who can talk directly to you, and how sometimes that can just create a paradigm shift that changes everything.
Yeah. Because I didn't find it criticizing or upsetting. I just suddenly felt like empowered. Like, oh yeah, I could just do that. I could
Mm,
just do that thing that I want to do, but I'm not doing because of they were all a lot of invisible barriers. But I also think I do this sounds like cheesy or whatever, but I'll be honest, like I have to do a lot of work on myself because I'm trying to untie the feeling that the charity is me because it's not me.
mm,
It's a separate thing to me. And that's maybe a thing for people who start up businesses. So everything that happens, it feels like it's you, but it's not. It's a separate thing. And I need to step away from that and see that. And being okay with, at point things being difficult or making difficult decisions. So
mm.
if I make difficult decisions for the right reason, realizing that's not people not liking Becky.
Yeah.
That's people probably wanting something else, but eventually they might respect the reason. But that's what I talk about, the more grown up thinking, but it doesn't come naturally to me. That.
Yeah, I get that completely. Okay, so if we had one final part, I mean, we've got some huge learnings there, to be fair, about following your passion. And if you're following your passion, it gives you a sense of bravery and determinism that will absolutely help you get where you need to go. Then you can bolt on the business skills and put great people around you that can help you get there. If I had to ask you for one final piece of advice to leave our viewers with, to add on to those, they're the three big learnings for me. I'm sure people got other things from your story as well. What would the final piece of advice be?
Mm. So I think to embrace your mistakes, to unlearn and relearn, and yes, celebrate yourself, but also really embrace your failings because you'll learn from those. There's
Mm,
honestly, the last 5 years have mainly been me going, oh, like relearning and rethinking things and feeling uncomfortable by how that worked, or like uneasy by how I did something, or cringing at something I did 10 years ago. But that is part of me going, well, let's do better. Let's do better. And actually just sitting, like embracing the feeling of uncomfortableness
yeah.
is something, again, I think you have to do if you lead a business. I
Mm,
just have never met anyone that I really respect doing it. That it's like, this is easy and comfortable and it's plain sailing. That just isn't the reality. So find a way to accept that whilst also looking after yourself. And I'm laughing at that because a lot of my family will be like, you need to work on that bit. But like, these are things that I do believe. I
yeah.
do believe, but it doesn't mean I just automatically always do them. I have to work on both those things.
Well, Matthew McConaughey says this in his book Greenlights, doesn't he? He says, by the way, I'm going to give you what I think perfect looks like, but that doesn't mean I'm perfect. I'm still working on a lot of this stuff as well.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
yeah, really interesting. Great stuff. Well,
Mm.
if our viewers want to find out a little bit more, if they want to, jump on a website, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yes, there's loads of ways. And if you're thinking like Odd Arts doesn't sound like it would link with the business world, you're wrong. We have a corporate development committee and we're always looking for new members. They help us do amazing work and increase our impact. And we also do a lot of training for corporates and a lot of the techniques we use.
Mm.
So it would be great to hear from people. they can go to @oddartsuk or email me at rebecca@oddarts.co.uk or find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Rebecca, thank you so much for taking the time to share your learnings about running a business, and just your learnings from life really as well. I feel like there's a lot of life learnings in there with our viewers.
Yeah, you're welcome. Nice to speak.